possible that they can participate with supervision and be a part of that process. They may not be able to do it in the fullest sense, but if we can get 75% out of them, then that's good. You know, we can't expect necessarily 100%, but at least we have certain standards that we set, which they are required to function within, and that's as good as we can do now, with the intention to bring more and more Muslim teachers into our schools. Because, I mean, we said already, that was a failure on the part of the community. You know, this was a fard kifaya, requirement of the community to provide Islamic education for the children, Islamized education as taught by Muslim teachers. That is the right of the children of our community. If we don't provide that for them, we are in sin. The whole community is in sin. So that's what we have to work on. We have to develop, correct, improve, and in working together, we can do it. Because Allah has not put any burden which is too great for us to handle. La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. This is reality. We can do it. It's just the will, the means. Inshallah, with Allah's blessing, it can happen. Go ahead.
I don't know if I'm putting the carriage before the horse about this, but it's just about the Eids that we have. But it is known, of course, in Islam that we're supposed to have only 2 Eids, but we have, you know, celebrations like Independence Day celebrations, you know, and I'm just wondering, is there a good way of integrating these celebrations that we have so that we promote patriotism, or do we just leave them since we're adding another Eid, or what is the best approach to it?
The law of the country. If the law of the country allows you to not celebrate it, then it's better not to celebrate it. If you are required by law to celebrate it, then you try to keep it on a low level, and also you try to bring out whatever positive elements that you can from it. You know, let it be some moral messages and lessons there. We don't want to promote Nigerian nationalism, because we know this was something hated by the Prophet ﷺ, and he spoke against it. Man da'a ila al-asabiyya falaysa minna. Whoever calls to tribalism, nationalism is not of us, you know. So we know that it has to be from another perspective. So that's what I would suggest, and it will vary according to the needs and the necessities of the circumstance. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I think more effort should be put into this Islamization of knowledge and education as well. Because in Nigeria here, we have seen even the consequences, as we have some sects coming up with an idea that even the knowledge is like what the secular system we're operating is prohibited, that this is haram, and in fact it costs the nation, the society, huge amounts of money and even pains. So I think if this concept has been there, it seems it wouldn't have been like this, and somebody will not look the education system as if it's not even part of Islam, and as for him, he won't even join the system. I think again that's something I would like to listen. In our society, we see in most cases, we see we the Muslims taking our children to the Christian schools. But you hardly see a Christian child in our own school. So all this issue, I think by the time more effort and more preparation are made, I think there could be some kind of solution. that will come out of this.
Inshallah. Schools, putting them in just in prison schools, and not vice versa. If our Muslim schools were the best in the country, the top graduates came from our schools, believe me, they would be lining up at our doors. But because our standard is so low, it's so low that even our own fellow Muslims don't want to put their children in our schools. Then, who are we to blame but ourselves? This is the bottom line. We have to raise the standard because excellence is, a part of the deen. The Prophet ﷺ had said, "Inna Allah yuhibbu min ahadikum idha amila amalan an yutqina." Allah loves from each and every one of you if whenever you do anything, you do it to the best of your ability. So the best, itqan, perfection, this is from the deen, it's part of the faith. But we have neglected it and we are now settling for anything, second best, etc. But as I said, still, in the end, the greatest prize that we give the students should be for moral behavior. When a student does something outstanding in your school, you make an example of that. Look what they did and give them a prize. You send messages. This is how subliminal messages are sent. Because as long as your main prize is for tops in academics, then that's your message. Get those top marks by any means necessary. And for students, cheating is the quickest and easiest way. But when the biggest prize is for moral excellence, then you're sending a very powerful message to them. Give a prize for academics too, but let it be second. Not the big one. So, inshallah, I think we're going to take our break here now for lunch and be back. You want to inform them? Right?
Pray for the male participants for prayer, and then food is served in the dining area for everybody. Okay. And the female as well, there's another room that is prepared for you for prayer. The toilets are downstairs for male and female separate. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. See you back in now, inshallah.
العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. In our previous session, workshop, we looked at the concept of knowledge from the Islamic perspective, the misconception that Islamic studies would be separate from secular studies. We said that the roots of that are from Christian thought, and the Islamic approach is an integrated, a fully integrated approach. We also spoke about concepts of knowledge, true and false, revealed and acquired, useful and useless. With regards to revealed knowledge, we said that useless knowledge, or the term useless knowledge in relationship to revealed knowledge, this meant what? Age appropriate or circumstance appropriate, means it's relatively useless. It's not useless in and of itself, but it's relatively useless. Even the acquired knowledge, when we say it's useless, it doesn't mean there is no benefit from it. Because even knowledge of the composition of dirt on Mars is useful knowledge at the time when we are planning to go there. So it's, it is useful knowledge at a particular time, but at this time it is useless. Meaning that there are other areas of knowledge which are more beneficial, which should take precedence over that. Because when we're seeking knowledge, it should be prioritized. Then we talked about the basic concept of education being cultural transfer. This is the core of it. So either you put those facts and figures in an Islamic package, or it comes in a Western secular package. Western package with its culture. The images, especially in the early years, where much of what is taught with stories and pictures, etc., then so much of their culture is passed on. So we said one of the main challenges that we're faced with is bringing morality back into the classroom. Now, we have been talking about Islamization of education. There's another concept called Islamization of knowledge. That Islamization of knowledge actually is a philosophical study. It deals with the theory of knowledge, and it's very complex. And it involves, practically speaking, reinvention of the wheel. If we distrust the West so much that anything that they have, we need to replace it with something we have, then that is the approach you're going to take. But the approach that I have taken, which I feel is practical, is we build on what others have done. You reach a certain point, we take the best of what they have and we build on it. We just don't take it all without any kind of sifting or assessment or picking and choosing what is in fact beneficial. So, Islamization of education instead is a relatively simple process. And that's what we will be focusing on. Now, part of the Islamization process, or I could say, the Islamization process is actually not complete until we actually replace existing books with our own Islamized books. This is really ultimately where we need to be, as long as it is permitted by the country that we're in. Some countries insist on standard books being taught in all schools. Some countries insist on it. You have no choice. The government has set a curriculum, everybody has to follow that curriculum. I ran into that in India, where the government curriculums for those who are taking the government examinations were standard books. Everybody had to use it. So the material in it was influenced by Hindu culture. Stories, their fables, and all this is a part of their literature. It comes up in their in their explanations for maths and everything. When you give word problems, all of this stuff comes up. So it's a challenge. You can't replace the books. And this is where the lesson plan becomes your best channel or your best source for Islamization. But where you can, there are countries which allow you. Where you can develop your own books, then it's worth developing another set of books, teaching the same material, but teaching it from an Islamic perspective. So you're not just doing it in the classroom as a teacher, you are presenting that material in an Islamic way. Even the textbooks which the children, young people will have in their hands, these are themselves Islamized. You know, this is ultimately where we would like to be. If it's at all possible, then we should do it. And this process is also critical for standardization. Because if it's left only up to the teacher, teachers have different capacities, different levels of motivation and all this. So one teacher might do quite a lot towards Islamization of the curriculum that's being taught. Another might do little. When you're a teacher who is doing a lot, has to go and is replaced by somebody else who doesn't have the same motivation, then the quality of the class drops. So you don't have a steady, you could say a steady approach to Islamization of education. It's up and down, up and down. So if you want, the way to do it is to standardize it, to establish some basic standards that whatever teacher comes, they have something to work with. Your ultimate tool is the textbook itself. If you have a textbook which has got everything, you're giving science, it's already been Islamized, everything is prepared, that makes life a lot easier. The teacher makes a lesson plan from a text that is already Islamized, that is the ultimate. But where you can't do the text, then you just work with the lesson plan. Now, if you are able to do both the lesson plan and the text, then I suggest that obviously the process by which you set up your lesson plan should be itself structured. If we go from school to school here, I'm sure if we take out each lesson plan, you'll see people have different lesson plans. There are no standardized lesson plans. So we need to establish something standardized. Standardized from the way in which the lesson plan is divided up, set up, etc., as well as standardized in terms of its content. Now, this can only be done if we establish principles for lesson plan Islamization itself, that process. If we say the most critical point in the Islamization of curriculum, Islamization of education, is at the point of lesson plan Islamization. Since that is what guides the teacher in delivering his or her subject. That's your guide. So if that guide has been systematically Islamized, then the lesson that you're delivering will likewise be systematically Islamized. And if it is standardized and you're not here that day, another teacher steps in, they have the stuff to work, they can carry on. May not be quite at the same level you were because you've been teaching it all along, but they can be close. If they're trained teachers, they have a good lesson plan, they can handle it. So in that way, we are systematically Islamizing the curriculum and Islamizing the school. Now, if we Islamize the curriculum, mathematics grade 1, you have 2 or 3 classes, different teachers, Islamize, according to principles, their curriculum. You have other schools, say the network of schools here, who agree to do likewise. Then, at the end of the coming year, all of the grade 1 mathematics teachers meet and they share their lesson plans. And from those lesson plans, they create a master lesson plan, which has the best that everybody had come up with for each lesson, all the way through the whole year. Now you have something solid. This is what I'm proposing. This is why I insisted from the very beginning that this workshop be for all the schools. Not just one school, but for all the schools. Because this project, ultimately, to be of maximum benefit, needs to be shared by a number of schools. So, if that master lesson plan is created after 1 year of operation, you're near the end of the school year now, right? So what we're talking about is next year. Next year this time, at the end of the school year, you meet. Because if you call this now, nobody has been working systematically in the Islamization, so it's going to be all kinds of things from everywhere and everywhere. So if we have a plan, in other words, we look for next year, this time, end of the year, we have a structure for the standardized lesson plan format, template, then the structure for Islamization of the lesson plan itself. We're going to come to that. That's what we're doing in this session. Then, at the end of the year, meet, choose the best. Now we have the manual. That's our first step. Of course, the prerequisite for that is to have knowledge of the lesson plan Islamization program, and also to agree on a standardized template. Because that way it will be easy for us to work together. If everybody uses their own template, then it's confused. It's much more difficult to establish a standardized manual that can be used across all the schools. So at the end of the second year, that master plan, we could call it a state or city master plan. If it can go state, can go national, can go global, that much better. But just working with where you are right now, look at it as a state master plan. You run it for 1 year now. Everybody is working with the same plan. As you're teaching in your class, you're going to find some things work better than others. Even though, yes, you brought together theoretically what seemed to be the best, but maybe when you come to actually implementing it, you'll find there are some other things that are better. There are other things that can be added and improved on it. So, by the end of the second year, you meet again and you share all those things. You clean it up, and now you have that finalized lesson plan, master lesson plan, which everybody will use. And from that, technically speaking, this is what you will use as your guideline. This is the teacher's manual, really. The guideline for establishing your own textbooks. Creating your own textbooks based on your master lesson plans. Now, this might sound like a dream. Let me tell you that in Ghana, in Kumasi, Brother Abdul Nasir, who attended some of my workshops like 5 years ago in the UK, he took this idea went back to Kumasi and established a good school, good quality school, because he was concerned about this thing we talked about, that the Islamic school should not be substandard. He got that message crystal clear. He came back, he set up an impressive school and got the teachers, all the things that we talked about. He worked on that, trying to get qualified teachers and all this, and started working with the lesson plans, with the lesson plan template and concepts. Of course, since then, further things have developed, right? You're getting beyond what he had. But what he worked with, Islamization of the material, adding the moral principles in it, he did that 1 year, 2 year, 3rd year, he made his textbooks. And he has made textbooks from kindergarten to grade 6 for all the subjects. And alhamdulillah, an institution in Turkey, he sent it to them. They printed the textbooks for him, for all of his students, for free. You see Allah's barakah?
Yes.
You know? And this detail, this information, inshallah, we'll pass it on to you. You can write that institution in Turkey. They do sell books, but they do give to Islamic schools free also. So you can raise your case, make your presentation to them, they will send you all the books. Now the books may not be perfect. You know, they tried their best working with it, you know, because they're working long distance. The people in Turkey are making it, and you know, they're in Ghana. So some cultural Turkish things were coming in. They had to go back and make them remove them, and you know, there was a bit of a struggle there to get it in a format which was appropriate to Ghana, to West Africa, you know, because the Turkish company, they were used to, they're wearing Islamic materials all the time, but Turkish Islamic materials. So all the people look like Turks, right? You know, and again, this is the issue, you know. You want the textbook, the people should look like the people of the area that the books are coming to. So they, alhamdulillah, work with it until they come up with something which I think is something very useful. Even if you don't necessarily apply the whole thing, you should have it in your library. Use this as resource books, definitely. And they've made huge strides. So know that it is possible. In fact, it has been done. Should have been done a long, long time ago. I had started way back in the 90s promoting this idea from back then. And I had been in committees which were concerned with Islamic education, Islamized education. But these committees which were meeting mostly in the UK, we met in other places also. But in the meetings, everybody was trying to come up with a new Islamic studies curriculum. You know, and I said, listen, brothers, sisters, it's been done already. We have, by that time, we had about 3 or 4 different complete curriculums which had been published, printed, etc. But they were insisting to do a better one. You know, I became frustrated because I felt that what was there we could work with. You know, yeah, it's not perfect, but a good thing, you know, get good out of it. So I then struck out on my own to try to implement what I thought was needed. And that was the Islamization of the so-called secular subjects. So I took English, and I took a template, a series called the Gin Readers. I don't know if some of you know it from English or not. The Gin Readers, very popular out of England. I had seen it being used in Saudi Arabia in schools which I taught in. It was the most popular series. So I took that series and I said, I will make an Islamic version of this. So I got an early childhood expert, and we started with the books from kindergarten up to grade 3. This was a series of 56 books we produced in 3 years. The book that I'm going to show you here is the series was called Iman Reading Series, not named after my wife, but it was called the Iman Reading Series, English Reading Series, and it began with pre-kindergarten, as I said, and went up to grade 3. Each level had like 2 sets of 6 books on each level. So the total was the 56 books, including workbooks. So here is an example from level 3, book 4 for age 7 plus. And this is just one story from the book. Just to give an example, this is, it's called, that particular book was called Trips to Remember. It had different stories of different families who had gone on trips. You know? And in this story, Muhammad and Fatima, they go to the beach with their parents. And, you know, of course, you see the beach, then the images are Islamic type images. So they build sand castles, and somebody's playing with a frisbee, and the dog catching it, you throw it, the dog catches it, brings it back. The dog runs and knocks over the kids and knocks over the castle that they were making. So out of it, the kids start throwing stones at the dog because the dog broke their castles. Then the mother stops them, no, you know, they shouldn't do that, and explains to them that, you know, the dog is not at fault, you know, you shouldn't hurt another animal. So some moral principles coming here now, right? It was just a little story about going to the beach, playing at the beach, making your sand. But now the dog is introduced. And I particularly chose the dog because Muslims have a problem with dogs, you know? The non-Muslims, they see Muslims and dogs, they say, what is it with you Muslims and dogs? You know, when they bring a dog, Muslims will run in all directions. You know? Because people have gone to extremes in dealing with the dog. You know? Islam has specified, yeah, if he eats out of the vessel you're eating from, yes, you clean it 7 times, 1 time with clean earth, etc. Yeah. But it's not everything. If he touches you, you know you have to go clean your garment. He brushes against you, you know you have to go make your wudu is broken. All kinds of ideas people have. But in fact, none of this is the case. None of this is the case. If you touch a dog, it's not haram. It doesn't break your wudu to touch a dog. The Quran speaks about hunting dogs. Mukallabin. It speaks about hunting dogs. Meaning that it's Muslims hunted and are allowed to hunt with dogs. And when you hunt with a dog, what does that mean? You send the dog out, catches a rabbit, and he brings it back to you. Now how does he bring it back? He brings it back in his hands, the front paws, he runs on his legs and brings it to you. No, he's taking it in his mouth. He's taking it in his mouth. And what do you have to do now? Take it and wash it 7 times? No. You cook the rabbit and you eat it. So we have gone to extremes, you know, made our lives very difficult because of misunderstandings, ignorance concerning the dog. So this is why I chose the dog. Could have been something else. Anyway, the point is, they're told about being kind to animals and not to harm animals. Then they sit and they eat a meal, beginning with Bismillah. And they discuss about something about the why they're eating, for example, beef, you know, and it's an animal. They told us not to harm throwing stones, now you're eating. These are the kinds of questions that the children will respond to, will come up with, and then it's explained to them that Allah said it's okay for us to eat the animals because they were made halal for us. Okay? And then they finished the extra food they had, they gave it to the dog ate, and so on. So they were kind in the end towards the dog, and they built an even bigger castle than they had before. Simple story, but many messages, moral messages, Islamic messages sent through the story. So if the children, they learn the principles of English, then they have to read, they have to have reading books to build on those, what in Arabic we call nusus. The books you learn Nahu, and then you have nusus books in which you utilize the skills grammar skills you've learned in those books. So an example of what we can do, what we can produce from scratch. We can produce alternative texts, and obviously if we did this in science, in maths, in everything else, then this is where the message is coming. That we're giving Islamic messages in every textbook that these children read. This is going to have a huge impact on the students. Sorry, that's the wrong thing here. Get it back to it. I'm going to press escape and then press that. Let's go to the other. Okay, that was actually the tail end of the previous session. The third session we're entering now, the principles of lesson plan Islamization. I have identified 5 basic principles. If these principles are implemented, you have an Islamized lesson plan, guaranteed. And it's not necessary to implement every one of the 5. 4 out of the 5, 3 out of the 5 may be all that you're actually able to do because of the material that you're dealing with. 1 of the 5 you cannot do without. But the other 4 are you try to do as much of them as possible. So the idea is to incorporate these principles in each and every lesson plan. The first principle relates to the classroom environment. As they say, one picture is equal to 1,000 words. In our classrooms, we are putting images, pictures in the classroom. So we need to be very specific about these images. Right now, we just find a nice picture, we stick it on the wall. A poster, nice saying, stick it on the wall. We just stick things on the wall. But we have to consider the walls of our classrooms like a textbook. That we are teaching something from every image that we put on the wall. So we choose these images carefully. We search for the best images which will convey what we want to convey. And each image that we put up there should convey an Islamic message. That's the point. That when the children look around, because that's what they do, They look around the classroom, their eye falls on something, there's an Islamic message coming, which they can understand. It should be not a beautiful saying in language which is above their level. They can't read it, they can't understand it. It might be visually attractive to us, but we have to think about them. So we make sure that every image, you have to do a picture of the body. We're going to do a class on body parts. The body. We get pictures, they're standard pictures you can get from bookstores and, you know, where they have a little boy standing there naked. Or he has just his underwear on. I've gone into Muslim class, I've seen this. It's just his underwear, it's a little small underwear. The thighs are exposed. Ah, but it's just a kid. A message is being sent. A message is being sent. Because we are supposed to teach the kids that between the navel and the knee, as a boy, should be covered, shouldn't be exposed. That's your aura. So that picture on the wall is violating Islamic principles. You are teaching the children that it's okay to show your thighs. But it's only a 5-year-old kid. It's not the point. You know, these things we need to teach the children from they're young. We have a tendency to dress our children, especially the girls and that. We'll dress them in very short dresses and tight leotard spandex. But they're only little kids. Don't they look cute? You are sending bad messages. The girls grow up wearing tight clothes. When they reach puberty, you want them to wear loose clothes. They don't like it. Doesn't feel comfortable. They're used to wearing tight clothes. Modern fashion is tight clothes. Western fashion is expose the aura. Islamic fashion is cover the aura. Opposite. So it's better. I'm not saying you have to cover the kid up in a jilbab and niqab and, you know, she's only 3 years old. Okay, I'm not saying we don't go to one extreme or the other. We try to find the balance. Find that balanced point. But she wears whatever little garments you put on her, they are loose. So she's comfortable in loose clothing. So when she gets to be 13, time of puberty 14, she's used to wearing loose clothing. If somebody even suggested to her to wear tight, she should not feel comfortable. It feels uncomfortable. She's not going to like it. That's what you want. So these are messages we send. So that is your classroom environment. Every class that you teach, you put up some posters which are relative to the class that you're teaching. There are some standard posters that you have around the classroom. Maybe you change them because you're working on a thematic approach. Every month you have a different theme which is shared by the school, all the classes, so you change those every month. But think about it, that the walls of your classroom are like a book. You have a purpose for every page. You have a message in every line. So this is your classroom environment. That is the visual environment. Then of course, the oral environment, most of you I'm sure are already doing it. When you go into the classroom, you greet the students, Assalamu alaikum, not hi. How are you all today? No, it's Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. This is a dua. it has much more value than high. You say high, what does high mean? High and low and what? What is this high? So we give them salam alaikum and we let them know why salam alaikum is better than hi. So it's not just that you don't use hi, you also have to let them know why we say salam alaikum and what salam alaikum means, as much as you can get to their little minds. So they can appreciate salam alaikum. And other phrases, you know, when things happen in the classroom, you know, something strange or something unusual, you say subhanallah. You know? In other contexts, people say geez. What do you mean geez? Geez is a short for Jesus. That's what it is, geez. It's a short for Jesus. Because that's what in the West people will also say. You know, some are more careful, they don't like to use it that often. They'll say Jesus. That we say subhanallah, they say Jesus. Jesus Christ. So, subhanallah. Alhamdulillah. These are well-known phrases. We just try to use them where it is appropriate, get them to use it also where it's appropriate, let them know what it means to the degree that we're able. Every day somebody is going to sneeze. In every class, every day somebody is going to sneeze. So tell them, Alhamdulillah, Yarhamukallah, Yahdikumullah, wa yuslih balakum. The physical environment, favoring the right. We know this is from the Sunnah. To favor the right. Who has organized this sound thing? I think it's, where is the person who did the set up the sound? It's squeaking though. Well, I think it's going red. The battery is going. Okay, so the physical environment, favoring the right. The kids are coming in the classroom, let the one on the right go in first. Right? Let the one on the right go in first. Also, depending on the age, if they ask you why favor the right? What do we tell them? Huh? It was the practice of the Prophet ﷺ to favor right. This was his way. If the kids are older and they now want to know more about this favoring the right, then it is possible for us to give them additional information about the right. On the Day of Judgment, those who are going to paradise receive their books in which hand? The right hand. So it's a reminder about the Day of Judgment. Be focused. The visual we spoke about already, and the objective of all of this is to create an Islamic cultural atmosphere in the classroom itself. We should do the same in our homes. You know, as we do it in the classroom, we should do the same in our homes. So in terms of your resources, because you're going to need help in getting material, the Islamic art teacher should be a good help. In some schools, they don't even have an Islamic art teacher, because the general attitude towards art is that it's haram. But in fact, there is a lot of leeway and room in education, especially for children, in the use of art. And in any case, if you're not using figures, then art is wide open. And it is a part of Islamic culture to have developed things and designed things in artistic ways. It is perfectly legitimate. And children who have artistic leanings, etc., we should favor it and direct it in a good direction, rather than saying haram. We should know and stay within the bounds. If Prophet Muhammad ﷺ allowed Aisha to have dolls, to have a horse with wings, he allowed Aisha to do so. Who are you to stop your children from having dolls or images, etc., and using them? Unless you think you're better than Rasulullah ﷺ. So, where there is leeway, the Prophet ﷺ has himself allowed this, then we should not restrict and make life difficult for our children. Because part of making learning fun, enjoying the learning, it's going to involve for them, to a large degree, some form of art, images, pictures, stories, etc. And the other major resource we call Sheikh Google. Alhamdulillah, it makes life a lot easier than in the days 20 years ago. There was no Google. Going to find images was a huge challenge. The second principle is that of Islamic historical relevance. The idea here is to connect the students with history, with Islamic history. What is being taught in the educational circles globally is Western history. So the students will graduate from school, they will know Einstein, they will know Newton, they will know all those Western names. But if you mention Al-Biruni, you say, what? Is that some kind of noodles or spaghetti? Biruni, spaghetti sounds good. Al-Haythami. Haythami? Is that a drink, a new drink on the market? They have no idea who are these people. And these were masters in their fields in science, in producing a lot of what is being done in Western science today is built on what they developed. So they should know these names. I'm not saying don't know Newton or don't know Einstein, but know Biruni and Haythami, Ibn Sina, know these people. So this is important because then the young person feels that Muslims have contributed. You cannot go to any field without finding that Muslims have contributed in this field, one way or another. Even the computer. Even the computer, there are Muslim scientists, mathematicians, who laid the foundation for the modern day computer. Most people don't know that, have no idea. So, it's important. This is Hassan ibn al-Haytham. He is known in the West as Al-Hazan. From Al-Hassan he became Al-Hazan. He was a pioneering scientific thinker who made important contributions to the understanding of vision, optics, and light. So you're teaching a class optics, they should know Al-Hassan ibn al-Haytham. You can see the picture in the middle, it's all written in Arabic, he's describing the eyes. Those are two eyes there and a nose in the middle, if you couldn't figure it out. Now, the idea, as I said, is to connect the students with their cultural past and to let them realize that Muslims contributed in all fields of learning. Resources. There's a book. There are pictures of it right there. It's called 1001 Muslim Inventions. You can download that book from kalamullah.com. This was produced in the UK for a big exhibition which was made there back in around 2010. They made a big exhibition there. And they gathered all of these major contributions made by Muslim scientists, which most people have no idea about. And they made a kids version. So you have there 1001 inventions and awesome facts. That's for kids. For the lower kids, the other one you can use for the secondary school, etc. And even you can draw from it and use it for the primary schools. So we have resources. If I told you this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would say, how? Where? Now it's at the fingertips. You can have it by just clicking on the internet, kalamullah.com, 1001 Inventions, and there's the book. Download the whole book. This book, hard copy, should be in the library, every Muslim school library. Multiple copies, that all the teachers can go and take from it and benefit. Of course, the other source, the other source of material, I mean, can be through Google. You can do further research to expand if you're doing other topics which are more complex. You know, simple facts, for example, like the inventor of the fuel for rocket ships, which took the first man to the moon, was an Egyptian scientist. He is the one who developed it. They brought him to America, gave him American citizenship, but he was a Muslim scientist from Egypt. And the top heart surgeon in the world, known Majdi there in London, Muslim physician. So, like this, even in modern times, there are many who have contributed and are outstanding in their various fields. We can collect that kind of information and utilize it in our classes. The third principle is a relevant Quranic verse. For example, you're doing a class on water, Maraj al-Bahrayni al-Taqiyan. He released the two seas so that they meet with a barrier between them which neither can cross. Surah Rahman, there is that barrier, you can see it. Or you're dealing with the body, you have the verse about Allah creating and proportioning the fingertips of every human being. So no two fingerprints are the same. But when we're going to use the Quranic verses, we should use the appropriate verse. It's not just any verse. What has become a standard practice in Muslim events, gatherings, etc., we have somebody read the Quran to start. He will pick a verse and he reads so many verses, whatever. People are sitting there and nobody understands what he's read. The translation is not even given. And even if the translation was given, it has no relevance to the gathering. What have we done to the Quran? What have we done to the Quran? For most people, they are only enjoying his recitation. If he is melodious, it sounds nice, mashallah. So it's like, songs. You like this singer or that singer, the other, Michael Jackson, whatever. We have a Quranic version. But this is not what the Quran is for. The Quran is a book of guidance. Hudan lil muttaqin. It's guidance How can you get the guidance if you don't know what it's saying? So at least in your gatherings, the minimum is that everything you read from the Quran should be translated so people understand what Allah is saying. Because the purpose of the reading should be to share something of the words of Allah with the people. But most importantly, what you're sharing should be relevant. You have a title of the lecture, you have a theme of the event, then the Quranic verse you can find touching on that same topic. So get a verse which is, it makes some effort. You know, there are easy ways, just do them for us, please. Anybody, anyhow. I mean, it's like the Quran is like, anyway, anyhow. No. Is that how we respect the Quran? It's like that? It's really not good. So, we plan. We're having an event. We're going to have somebody recite. Make sure that that person who recites is reciting with proper tajweed. So I've been to places where there are people get up there and they're butchering the Quran. You know, this thing should be, we have respect the Quran. Have it recited properly for people and make sure the verse is relevant and then give the meaning. So the Quran has brought some light into the hearts that are there. This is the point. So now, when we're going to get the Quranic verse for that class we're teaching, same principle applies. It should be relevant. It's not just about sticking a Quranic verse on the wall. Ayatul Kursi. No. Surah Yasin. You know, we have certain standard parts of the Quran, people just stick them everywhere. But this is not. This is not how we use the Quran. We have a class on photosynthesis. We get a verse on the leaves and how Allah created them and how they fall and how He knows everyone that falls, etc., etc. So we don't turn the class into a tafsir class. So you go into details, breaking down the words and the relationships and other related verses from across the Quran. You're teaching a class on photosynthesis. So teach the class. But just let the students know that even though you're talking about something which is only discovered 100 years ago, the Quran spoke about it, addressed issues concerning the leaves. So that is the point. Subtle. We just bring it in, it's on the wall for that particular class, then it's off the wall afterwards. You put another verse up which is relevant to your next class. In English, to find the verses, there is an English concordance of the Quran printed in Pakistan. That can be ordered. So that just, if you don't have the Arabic to search for it, then you can make a search with an English concordance. It's quite a thick book. It has been produced in Pakistan many years ago, maybe 20 years ago. There's an Arabic version. If you have Arabic, it's much easier. If you don't, you have the Arabic department, you can ask them, listen, I need the verses on so-and-so. There's a book, Concordance, Al-Mu'jam al-Mufahras, the Al-Fadl al-Quran, by Fuad Abdul-Baqi. With great ease you can do it. Actually, with Sheikh Google, you can also do it. You can do it with Sheikh Google. You make that search. You can search in English as well as search in Arabic. Once you start doing it, at first you might feel clumsy, how, where, when, why, but after you do it a few times, you get the hang of it. It's very simple. You can pull the verse that you need. Similarly, that we added the Quranic verse. For example, you're teaching a class on health, sleeping etiquette, then you bring the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ had forbidden us for sleeping on our stomachs. we should not sleep on our stomachs. Now in the past, people just didndidn't do it. Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ said, don't sleep on your stomach. They avoided it. Those who were practicing, they avoided it. In recent times, Western physicians, scientists, surgeons have identified that sleeping on the stomach is the major cause for what is called sway back. People, when they get old, they're bent over like that, they can't straighten up, sleeping on the stomach. Number one cause. So it does affect our health. Further research in the late 80s, early 90s showed that after analyzing the causes or the circumstances around what was known as cot death or sudden death syndrome, SDS, they found that the common factor, the most common factor of those children, those babies that were put to sleep at the age of 1 or 2 and don't wake from their sleep, they die in their sleep for no apparent reasons. Most common factor, putting them to sleep on their stomach. So in the late 80s, 89, there was a big announcement in the press in the UK for the medical profession to inform the people, do not put your children to sleep on their stomachs. That spread to the US. It also became major news across the country. And within 8 or 9 years' time, when they researched, cot death had dropped by more than 60%. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. So we try to introduce the hadith in the same way, the relevant part. We don't need to give them the whole hadith. Just give them the portion. If they're old enough to learn the Arabic and the English or whatever language you're teaching it in, you do so. If they're not, they just repeat it after you and you focus on the translated text. And the purpose is also to let them understand that the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ has relevance to their lives. Because the modern trend is that Quran, Sunnah is outdated. 1,400 years ago, life has changed. Society has changed. It needs to be modernized. This is the kind of talk that we hear from the modernists. But reality is that the Quran and Sunnah will remain relevant until the last day of this world. We have a book, Al-Mu'jam al-Mufarras li Alfaz al-Hadith, in Arabic, which you can help research relevant hadiths. And of course, Sheikh Google, the shortcut. If you don't know Arabic, etc., you can find it through there. The last principle, the fifth principle, is the moral message. This is the one which, if you're not able to get any other principle in your class, in your lesson plan, you make sure you get the moral principle, because that is the core. We said it's about bringing morality back into the classroom. So it means the moral principle should not be missed at any cost. But now when you're going to teach the moral principle, you don't make it a separate entity. You know, you have a piece of your class, you know, where you stop the class and say, okay kids, we're going to learn a moral principle now. No. You want to weave it into the class so it is something they don't feel like they're being preached to. You work it into the class and the classroom. So that moral message, based on the fact that the Prophet ﷺ had said that he was only sent to teach humankind, the highest of moral character. The idea is that we try to give the students the moral message which is appropriate to their age. Because there's some things you're going to tell a grade 10, grade 11, 12, but you're not going to say to grade 1, 2, 3. The issues of a 7-year-old and 8-year-old is different than the issues of a 15, 16-year-old. They have some shared issues, yes, you can give to anyone, but then there's some which are more specific to the younger ones, to the elder ones. So you need to know which ones are better. This is where your child psychologist, is very helpful. They can identify for you, for whatever age you're dealing with, the most appropriate moral message to teach. And there are books which have spoken about it, like this book, Can We Teach Children to Be Good? By Dr. Strahan. And of course, there's always Sheikh Google at the end of it all. Okay, so those represent the 5 principles. Again, the first was what? The classroom environment. Right? The second was historical relevance, relevant piece of information. A Muslim hero in whatever field. The third was Quranic verse. Fourth, hadith. And fifth, moral message. Inshallah. So, if these are applied, then you have an Islamized class without a shadow of a doubt. Every class you may not be able to apply all 5. You may not be able to find a historical figure. You may not be able to find a Quranic verse. It's not to say it doesn't exist, but you may not be able to find it. Same thing with the hadith. The first one is a lot easier. This is the environment, That's something ongoing, fairly easy to do. But if you can't get those others, just make sure you get that moral message. So, when you're dealing with the young people, you do it in stories. Or, certain behavioral things that are going on in the classroom, you correct them. It could be on the spot. You know what they're doing. So you're watching out for it, you catch it, and you correct it, but you correct it in such a way that all learn from it. So that is, inshallah, the basic 5. And tomorrow, inshallah, we will move on to practically Islamizing lesson plans. So each of you should bring some lesson plans for some subject, whatever that you're teaching, and let us go through it together. You can make an attempt yourself, which is good. Don't just bring it and expect everybody else to do it. You make an attempt yourself. You've got the principles and everything. You try yourself. Then you come and you give it as you originally had it, and then we look together to see how we can Islamize it. You can add what you found, what you're suggesting, and we all can do it together, inshallah. I know that those who teach mathematics, how many are mathematics teachers here? Put your hand up. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, mathematics teacher, usually when I do this kind of workshop, they always are the ones to ask me, okay sir, how do you Islamize, 2 plus 2 equals 4? We'd like to know that one. How do you Islamize 2 plus 2 equals 4? Where's the room to do any of this? Well, the kids that you're teaching 2 plus 2 equals 4 to, How do you teach them? You teach them with stories, word problems. So you teach them that Ahmed was given 2 naira by his mother. He went to play football with his friends, and 2 naira fell out of his pocket. He went home, couldn't find his 2 naira. He cried, and his mother gave him another 2 naira. Ahmed's friend, Muhammad, who was playing football, he saw the 2 naira. He picked up the 2 naira. But he took it to Ahmed's home, and he gave Ahmed his missing naira. How many nairas did Ahmed have? He now has 4. What have you told in that story?
Honesty.
Honesty. Because the children at that age, they go on the principle, finders, keepers, losers, weepers. Everybody knows that one, right? So you just broke that right there. He didn't keep it. He gave. And then what you add at the end of the story is that the mother also gave Muhammad 2 naira for being such a good boy. So you come on with how many messages there? In 2 plus 2 equals 4. Is it simple or not? And even if you have to teach, one of the things that you can teach, for example, you've got 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. But there are some people who say that 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 1. Who would say that? Yes, there are people. Beware of them. 3 gods in 1. You see? You show them logically. You imprint that on their minds. You know, it's clear. 1 plus 1 plus 1 has got to equal 3. There's no God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, 3 gods in 1. No. That's 3 gods. So even in your mathematics, you can be giving serious dawah. Inshallah. Okay, so we'll pause here and take some questions to end off our session. Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mustafa Masoud. Of particular interest is this issue mentioned of trying to teach the kids the body parts. You know, you have a little child with boxers, shorts, and the rest of the aura is out there open. That's for primary. My own question affects the secondary school vis-a-vis the requirement for passing WAEC. I'll give a practical example. Our students start for external, the GCE, and part of the question had, there was this section of biology that's so much to do with reproductive health. And the teacher, who was a Christian, didn't teach that part because there were certain explicit things that were in the curriculum. So what happened for most of the kids, they failed that section. You know, so you have that challenge where the syllabus requires certain explicit explanations and diagrams and all that. And this is going to come out in an external exam, like how do you balance this sensibility? You want to maintain sensibility as well as passing the external exam. That's my
let us say that health education is important. We can't leave things unspoken of. There are books that have been produced. I know in the UK, because Muslims were challenged there, the same thing. Sex education. What do you do? So they developed textbooks which are appropriate for Muslims. So my suggestion is get a hold of those textbooks and use those. So you give the students sufficient information for them to be able to pass their examination without necessarily going into the additional details which they have gone into. So you find what is the minimum. And it is our duty also to educate the children. The other option is that you prepare a manual which you give to the parents. Let the parents explain, so that the students don't, because the father and the mother, they know their children. They don't want to do it, but that's not the point. You have to tell the parents, listen here, this is actually your job. Right? This is your job. We're helping you. But you need to do it. Because imagine a teacher having to explain that to your daughter or to your son. It's better you do. Sister shaking her head.
It's a boarding school.
A boarding school? No, well, I mean, where you don't have access to parents, etc., then you do the best you can. As I said, you do the minimum, etc. But where it's possible to put that in the hands of the parents, let them do this job. Because, brothers and sisters, please settle down, please. In a sense, parents are not doing their job with their children. Because when children go off to get married, the mother doesn't tell her anything. The father doesn't tell him anything. It's whatever he picked up, that is circulating on the grapevine, and whatever she heard, from this one or that one or the other one, and then, it can be calamity. And parents are at fault. It is the responsibility of the parents to prepare the young people before entering into the marriage, to pass on what they know, to help them transition into a new circumstance with knowledge. So it's not just a big shock and surprise and, So I think this matter, I've given two solutions, inshallah, between them. It can help the students get through this area, inshallah. Further question? Over here.
My challenge is with regards to the issue of our young pupils. We have pupils in a purely Islamic environment, and they don't interact with non-Muslims within the environment. They spend the whole day there. So by the time they meet non-Muslims outside, maybe they might not know how to interact with them, because on our side, they're still young. We haven't taught them, we haven't gone into the issue of interaction with non-Muslims because of their age. They're just like 5 to 7 year olds. So the parents tend to blame the school in putting in, extremist ideas in their children's mind, with regards to interaction towards their interactions with non-Muslims. But what I tend to explain to them is we just teach them, at this level, we teach them to love Islam and hate kufr, but not kuffar. And to, you know, so it's for the parents to guide their children when they behave in a matter they feel is extremist. So are we doing wrong not to introduce the issue of mu'amalat with non-Muslims at this level, or we still have time to move?
What are the concepts that we need to develop at those ages? Because loving Islam is one thing which they should be taught. Hating kufr is something which may be too complex for their age. To separate between hating kufr but not the kuffar, you know, grade 1, grade 2, this is very difficult to distinguish. So my advice is the hate part, leave that. Love Islam, you know, respect the others, but love Islam. When they get into middle school, you know, high school, then you can introduce those more complex emotions and concepts. So I would say that if you build that fervor of hating kufr in little 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, I'm not surprised that the parents are saying, what are you creating here? You know, little Boko Harams. Well, the point is that if you are introducing concepts from the Quran, then you need to give them the clarity to ensure that they don't go off in extremes. You know, you need to go over time to try to make sure, you know, you can see potential as a teacher, you can see potential danger in a misunderstanding of this verse or that verse, then it becomes your responsibility that you make those things clear. So the parents, you know, may be justified if these things are not made clear and their children start to make connections which you didn't make, but you didn't say anything, you know, then they're going to blame you. Your name is? Did you give your name? Oh, it's the same person? You asked before?
My name is Bilal from Darul Foundation School. I'm a teacher. So I was wondering, I was going to ask this question about teaching the body parts. You said we have a picture of a naked boy or wearing just little panties with another message. So I want to ask, can we teach using the segmented body part images? For example, the thigh, the head, the arm. Can we use?
No, I'm just saying. Image? I'm saying put shorts on, which go down to his knees.
Okay.
That's the simple solution. The rest of the body is halal. You can see it. So in this area, from the navel to the knee, you just, you know, you got that image. You just get the art teacher to go and put a pair of shorts on. Simple.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam.
I have a question. First, an observation. I want to advise the populace that it's also very important for us to always consider al-hikmah wal-maw'idah in dealing with our parents whenever we have a school. In the sense, someone said something about birthday and that issue. I want to advise that we are relating we are dealing with parents who wouldn't really understand very well the Islamic principles. Some of them are westernized Muslims. They have just they decided giving their children to us because they think Islam is important, but they don't really have the content, the message of Islam. So sometimes it's good to send messages to them, to bring them very close, taking the message from the school down home. We should not only teach their children. Teaching only their children may not give us the results. Because when they get down home there, the parents will destroy what they've been taught. We have cases from our school at Sokoto there, a child using hijab in the school, and when it's Salah, the parents say, remove that hijab and let's go out. The girl continues to cry and that. So it's good, we also send messages, enlightenment to the parents, organize programs on Salah Day with them, invite scholars such that they are dawah, because we said it's ibadah, and dawah is part of ibadah, so that we take the message around all in all. Secondly, we are in Nigeria, where unfortunately most of the people that handles education are most of them are the kuffar. Materials we use are being prepared by Johns and Phillips, and of course in the nursery schools we may need to use rhymes. I have a particular line here, I don't know if you allow me to play it. Sometimes we do have challenges in our schools. When we are teaching children Islam, some of them won't teach them beauty phonics, but then we have to go through these lines like this.
Bring your bat and bring your ball, but. Bring your bat and bring your ball to.
Just an example, there are other points to our lines that has some greetings and the likes of that. I don't know what is the position of Doctor on that.
Music in general, where we're using musical instruments, is that it's haram. There's no exception made for the children in this case. You know, musical instruments, the guitar, the piano, flute, all these instruments are haram. So we then need to develop alternatives. You know, there are anashid and things, and people have become now anashid artists who are producing. Some of them have gone into musical instruments too, so you have to leave them. But those that have remained with just the duff and the voice, or clapping or something like this is permissible. So you try to find among them, or if there are people well known here in Nigeria, you pay them. You have a series of rhymes, you pay them, do these rhymes, produce the stuff, and you replace it. You know, bring your bat and bring your ball. I mean, we can do something else. Bring your prayer mat and bring your, you know, whatever. You know, we can, all this, we can replace it. You know, these type of things. We should have our own rhymes, etc. for the children. But I think that one's not so difficult. The first point that you're making, that was concerning, what again, what was that? Birthdays, yeah. You know, there are two approaches to this. One, as you're suggesting, that there should be regular parents, admin or teachers meetings. You know, where once a month or twice a month, you know, there are messages being given to the parents. To let them feel that this educational process, they are playing a role, an important role. That they need to reinforce what we are teaching. So they need to upgrade their knowledge. You know, this is it. You know, so the parents are also engaged in the educational process. You know, at least one of the parents, maybe both can't come, but at least one of the parents, you make this a requirement for the parents of your students. At least one of the parents must come and attend this regular once a month session where you help them, you bring them useful information. You know, get a child psychologist to advise them in some areas or whatever. So they feel it's something worthwhile, not just preaching. Because, you know, of course they may get bored with that if you're just talking Islamic things all the time, every time. Give them things which are also Islamic, but just not openly and clear this, indirectly helping them. So this is one approach. The other approach, which is the selective approach, where the school interviews the parents of the students. And if the parents are not Islamically inclined, they don't accept the students. I know this is a tough one. This is a tough one. This is Dr. Zakir Naik's school. He tests the parents. If the parents don't meet up to this mark, he doesn't take them. I mean, of course, he's got, huge lines of people waiting, right? Now, you all maybe only have so many students, and, he said, if we do that, we lose half of our students, the school couldn't function, all these other kinds of issues. But I'm just telling you, there are these two approaches. You maybe need to find a midway between them. That you should, to some degree, do some screening of the parents. Some people say, well, but you're now penalizing the students because of their parents. Give those kids a chance to, but you have to say, you have to weigh the harm and the benefit. If the parents you can see are just way out there, means this kid is going to be coming with bombs every day. He's coming, your school is, suffering. The children are suffering. You have to say, hey, better we keep this one out and save our kids, the rest of the kids. So, though you don't want to deny the child, you still have to look at the greater good. Where the harm is not containable, and for the sake of the rest of the school, the rest of the children, you have to let that one go. And again, if your concern is Islamic education, then this is the sacrifice that you have to make. It means, yes, profits are going to be less. Maybe you're only just breaking even, but you're breaking even and the children are learning at the best level that you can have them learn. That is far better than making nice profits, but we have these little time bombs in our school. Inshallah. Further question or comment?
My name is Farida Idris Ibrahim, and my question is basically with regards to the criteria with which Islamic schools should be evaluating themselves. It is not uncommon to see a child who has gone through nursery, primary, secondary education in Islamic schools who have no sense of Islamic adab, either in dressing, in the way they speak, in the way they think, in their thought process. It is extremely common in our society, and you find that in fact a lot of these schools that these children graduate from are supposedly some of the best Islamic schools that we have. And now my question is, Dr. Bilal, what is most important, what's the most important thing we as Islamic schools should be looking at? Is it academics? I mean, that's, when I say that, I mean when we're comparing ourselves to the strictly secular schools. Is it, it's the best school because the students are doing very well in academics, or should there be a difference in the criteria for evaluation simply because it is an Islamic school? And as you said, what is important to us is not strictly academic, because I've seen this severally. These are students who are supposedly went through an Islamic education, but there is no Islamic adab.
More of a comment rather than a question, right? You're commenting on a reality a reality about which I spoke as we touched a number of the principles. When we said that the highest reward in the school should be for moral excellence. And we make a big thing of it. You know, so-and-so did this, and we're giving them a prize for it. So children will compete for that. They will want to get a similar prize, you know, to do some good. They will compete with each other in doing good. So, yes, I agree that this should be our greatest concern. But we should not make that now a justification for poor academics. That's the point. That we should, since we're doing this thing systematically, you know, we have a clear plan. It's not about financial gain. Then our academics should be at the highest. It should be up there. Because we have trained teachers, but the problem is if we don't have trained teachers, if we don't have the necessary components for a proper school, and we're just running a school, we call it an Islamic school, but yes, they're singing Islamic nursery rhymes, and they dress nicely, and all these other kinds of things. Even when they leave, they look dressed Islamically, and so, salam alaikum, everything is, but academically they're nowhere. Then that administration, that school has done a disservice to those children, those young people. Because we want them to be excellent in all aspects. We want it to be holistic. You know, the educational process is a holistic process. So as they're excellent in morals, they're excellent in academics. They pay attention. They respect their teachers. They respect their fellow students. They don't use bad words. You know, they speak in a nice way. They are people who make you proud, make your school proud. We're proud to say so-and-so graduated from our school. That's what we want. Because they are Islamically and academically at the peak. And this is something doable.
Doctor, you spoke about like instilling Quran, that is in the children. So my suggestion, like, it's just a comment I want to make. I attended a Christian school, that's my nursery school, and the first thing we do in the morning is we have to recite like our Father who art in heaven, and till the end. So till today I cannot forget that. And if we can try as much as we can, at least Ayatul Kursi, before we start any class, we have to recite that. So if we can, as much as possible, for the kids to be able to recite at least Ayatul Kursi to start the day, which I think is going to go a long way.
Well, Ayatul Kursi is down the line, you know. I'm not saying Ayatul Kursi is not important, it's important. We teach them that one at home before they go to bed at night. You know, this is where Ayatul Kursi has been particularly recommended. But if we want our students, if we're going to teach them a surah from the Quran, then that surah should be Alhamd, Surah Alhamd, Al-Fatiha. This is number one. That, the Prophet ﷺ said, is the greatest surah in the Quran.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fatima Hamza, school head of Alamana Academy. I just wanted to add something to what the earlier speaker was saying, the one before the last. I think what she was trying to say was there are times that certain children pass through a school and that school is Islamic, so to speak. And then you expect that by the time they graduate, they have high, excellent moral quality. But when they get to higher institutions, they have nothing to show for that. So I guess, like what you were saying earlier, there are a lot of factors involved in training a child. There are teacher-wide factors, school-wide factors, and then the environment, and then the parental factor as well. This is what I believe. So they all come together to nurture the child. So there are times that you see the school is doing a lot in terms of that, but once they go back home, there's a lot of issues coming from the home. So the school sometimes does not get the whole child, unfortunately, but there are times that you get the whole child. So I just wanted to add, make a point to that.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Madam, is another comment. Alhamdulillah, a lot has been said from the Sheikh and from the floor. May Allah reward everybody abundantly. From what I've heard today, I've got to know that there's a lot of challenges before the Muslim Ummah around the globe. A lot of challenges indeed. We've been talking about Islamization of education. From what we are saying, we have certain impediments, especially from the comment of my job here, my neighbor, that there are certain things that you do, and if you stick to certain, issues that happen with Islam, when you come to the national examinations, still there are things that students cannot go into because of what you've done. This, of course, to me will lead to a struggle from the Islamic Ummah on how to bring about policies that will allow the Muslims to have exams that are in line with Islam or in line with their religion. And we can only do that when we bring up an Ummah that will go to the National Assembly and do so. This means that we have a lot to cover. If you have students, there's a need for awareness to the students on the challenges on ground. Most of the policies that we have on ground, the policies that we follow, are not policies initiated by Islam or Muslims. And they go against, the Islamic practice. You cannot practice certain things because of these policies. And these policies can be subject to change based on participation. If Muslims participate in this certain things, they can change them to suit their original people. And if they don't, others will be there to do so for them. So I think there's a lot on us, and we need to plan for that in the years coming up. Assalamu alaikum.
We need to focus on what we can do now. The later stages we work towards, we keep them in sight. I'm not saying forget them, but what we can do now, let us do. There are other schools like you around the world that I've spoken to, given lectures to, and they have committed themselves, their administrators, their principals, have committed themselves to working towards this goal. At least we try to do this much. We have part-time or partial solutions which will deal with the issue of sex education. But this issue of Islamization of education, this is primary. This is most primary. And we need to establish this. I've given a timeline. Next year, by the end of next year, we should be preparing our first standardized lesson plan manuals for the teachers here in Kaduna. And those that have come from other states to work with us. It is important that representatives create the network from now. We have a network online already, which is global. We have a website in which we are encouraging schools to upload material which could possibly help you in your own preparation, etc. What I would like to see once we finish off the workshop tomorrow, practical efforts to Islamize, is that the principals or heads of the schools that are represented here, you meet together, form a committee here for the lesson plan Islamization project. And you will need to assign people in each of your schools who are responsible to supervise, to follow up, make sure that the teachers do it. And you also, as proprietors and founders of schools, you also, knowing that you are now asking the teachers to do more than they were doing before, you are now obligated to pay them more. Right? This is the right of the teacher. You've asked them to do more, then you should also be willing to pay them more. If they do more. Yeah. It's conditional. Yes. Not just paying more just for the sake of paying more, but that's why we have supervision, to ensure that people are doing what they have been instructed to do, what they're committed to do. If they do it, it comes in the form of a bonus or whatever, however you work it out in your school, but you should be prepared to give them additional remuneration for their efforts. And this becomes also motivation, not to say it is the only motivation, but this, when the people know that I work harder, it's being considered, I can earn more, this is motivation to do more. So I think that we need to lay solid foundations. If what I have presented to you, you agree on, it makes sense, it's doable, it's worthwhile, then let's do it. Inshallah. Inshallah, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we will begin the work on the lesson plans themselves. Inshallah.
Seeking knowledge and obligation made easy. Thought about studying for a long time? Tuition fees keeping you from actually starting? Islamic Online University has led a revolution in online learning. The world's first tuition-free degree, BA in Islamic Studies. Access the knowledge, any place, anytime, anywhere. It just doesn't get any easier than that. Classes, texts, assignments, completely online. Set your own schedule for the semester. No overseas travel required for the exams. Subjects taught by qualified English-speaking scholars. Weekly live sessions and virtual classrooms. With curricula based on those in Al Medina University in Saudi Arabia, Al Azhar University in Cairo, and other reputable institutions around the world. Why wait any longer? You pay just a symbolic registration fee and are ready to begin the adventure of higher education. The most diverse student body of any university in the world. 130,000 plus registered students from 217 countries. Log in to the website for more details. www.islamiconlineuniversity.com